All right, Mr. Chip Franks, known as the Joy Guy. So this is kind of fun, you guys. We're gonna do this little intention setting I usually do behind the scenes. Chip is the best. I'm so happy to have you here, Chip. This is like
Thank
such
you.
an honor. You're one of the most joyful, generous, kind, gracious people I've ever met, and super wise. And all right, we're gonna do this intention setting. So I do this before every podcast, sometimes solo, sometimes with a guest. But my intuition and yours, oh my God, I just got, whoops, got ash everywhere. It's all good. Your intuition said to do it in for everyone to see. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. So here we go. All right. So I am going to just invite you to close your eyes. And we just are grateful to be here in this moment, in this space and time. And my desire is that all that is said here is for the highest good of all the listeners, all of our beloved, beautiful listeners out there, and that everything we share and all of your wisdom lands on ears that are open and receptive, and that everything's for the highest good and helps to cause more joy and gratitude and appreciation in each of our worlds and in the greater world. And so honored to have you here.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. And this is something we can start with this because it's fun. As lately, I've been this year. I have gone into everything with deep intention and no expectation, and
Oh,
that seems to be just like the right mix of how to go about life. Just
mm,
releasing the result, which I've always thought of, but just having the intention that we're really going to do something great. But if it doesn't turn out great, that's completely fine because it's perfect. That's the way it was supposed to be. But more often than not, it turns out to be something beautiful. So this is wonderful. I love setting the intention.
that's awesome. Thank you. Well, I think we just start right there. I love that the deep intention, no expectation, releasing the result. That's kind of what I heard you say
Yes.
is that something, did you always live by that? Is that something you've come to more recently? Like, tell us a little bit about, I want to hear more about, I know you've gone through a lot of different things in your life and would love to hear about your philosophy and your learnings along the way. I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah. I would say it's probably more recent. And my life is pretty much, it feels like it's completely changed in the last 5 to 6 years.
Mm,
I used to own two real estate companies. It was always go, go, go. And at that time, I would say I had expectation for everything, meaning,
yeah.
you know, I'd, uh, I just want things to turn out like they're supposed to. I was so hardcore on my goals, and if I didn't hit the goal, then I would be upset at myself and upset at the situation, or feel like a failure or what have you. And that was always holding an expectation. And I think that we'll talk about this, but expectation. If you have an expectation, um, then you have a very it's the best way to put this, then you only have one way to win, if that makes
Mm,
sense. Yeah. So
yep.
if it doesn't go the way that you wanted it to, then you're not happy with it. And you always feel like you're lacking in some way, form, or fashion.
Yeah.
And yeah. And I think that releasing that expectation lately and, allowing room for divinity, for things to happen like they're supposed to, for serendipity, um, and just knowing it's all going to be perfect in the end, it's all good. So yeah, it's definitely something a little newer for me.
I love that you just went right into expectations. I think this is the area where so many of us get really tripped up. The one I've heard is that expectations are premeditated resentments
Ooh, yeah.
with ourselves, often
Yeah.
resentments with ourselves. Can you talk a little bit? I mean, so take us from, I know you successful in real estate, go, 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 high achieving, to you've had some health issues, you've shifted your whole way of doing life. Like, maybe tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you are now, because I do want to dive into why you're the joy guy
Okay.
and get into like how we can have more joy. But I think it'd be helpful just to like hear a little more like, what's that look like for you?
Yeah. I'll start off by saying, back in 2013, 2014, I have been a real estate broker for, 22, 23 years now, and did it just right out of school at Texas A&M, and sold real estate successfully, did all that, became a broker and started a company. And really, by everything on the outside, everything looked great. And I know a lot of people can relate to this.
Yeah.
But in 2013, 2014 especially, I was going through a long-term low-grade depression. And that
Mm.
is, not being fulfilled, not being excited about what I did. I didn't like my business. I had every reason in the world to be happy and joyful with my fantastic family, which I still have. By God's grace, everything is wonderful with that. A business, living in abundance, living in freedom in a land of opportunity, where we can make anything we want of our lives. And I felt depressed.
Mm.
And there was a period of time going through that I literally just wanted to stay in bed all day. I couldn't stand to get up. Went into the office. Literally, this sounds so strange, but I would throw up sometimes in the office because I just didn't want to be there so badly,
Wow.
and just feeling really guilty over that because I have every reason in the world to feel great, and I didn't,
Yeah.
uh, and I believe that we have so many blessings, and just for me not feeling as joyful as I should, I just felt guilty over that. And something changed for me with that. And for me, and this is really interesting because I'm a student of self-development, and I love Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn and Brian Tracy and Zig Ziglar, and grew up with all of those, made a study of it, and I still wasn't happy, and I still wasn't fulfilled. And along came a book, and I'll give this man a lot of credit, which is James Altucher, and he wrote Choose Yourself. And his book talked about a daily practice where you work on your mental self, your emotional self, your physical self, and your spiritual self in a daily practice, and doing one thing every day to make yourself better with that. And as much as I had studied before, that was like one of the first times I'd been given a system to make it part of your schedule every day, which is really neat. And that just created a lot of momentum in my life, and started me doing lots of different things, which we'll talk about today. But just getting momentum in my life started me to feeling a lot better, and created kind of a renaissance in my life at the time. And like one of those for my spiritual practice, what I did, and I'm convinced that this is the biggest thing that pulled me out of my
Mm.
depression at the time, was that I resolved to do an act of kindness every day for another human being.
Wow.
And I call that an A-OK a day. And um, and that seemed to pull me out of my depression, and that led to starting a nonprofit, to doing things like we went to nursing homes
Mm.
and put on hug stations for my kids to give hugs to the people there,
Wow.
and just things like that. It just made life so much sweeter, and that started me on a journey to doing things that made me feel better, to do things better. And then I think I just told you just right before this, about 2 years ago, I had a stroke, and I was in California at a convention for entrepreneurs, and the stroke happened as we were walking in from lunch. And I just remember looking at my buddy, talking to him, and I'd asked him about the speakers that went on in the morning, and I couldn't communicate. I couldn't say the word speaker at the time.
Wow.
I remember him just looking at me, and his head turning. You know how when you say something to a dog and they don't understand and they turn the head kind of sideways? And he was doing that with me. Not that he's a dog, that came out wrong. But he was just looking at me quizzically, like, "What the heck are you saying?"
Right.
And he figured it out. And he's like, "Chip, you sit down." And he went to get the people that were running the conference. And luckily they had a few neurologist experts there,
Wow.
and they did a quick stroke test on me, and I had a stroke, and spent the next 3 days in the hospital and did the MRI machine, and that was a big wake up call. And 2 months later, I sold both of my businesses and knew that I wasn't going to do real estate. And yeah, so that's kind of where I ended up, and now I'm working with Hal Elrod, the Miracle Morning, and being his chief miracle worker, which is fun. And I've made a study of joy, because I've been able to go from that low grade depression to literally, and I say this with humility. One of the oh, pardon me.
You too.
Uh,
Just listening to
yeah,
that.
what's that?
I said, let's guess it. Was that you too?
That was, wow, you guessed that
Yeah.
really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. But oh man, Julie, there's a story about this. I want to tell you, because you talk about finding evidence a lot, right?
Yeah, I do. Oh, yeah.
Yes. That song is Pride in the Name of Love.
Yep.
And it's my theme song. I just love that, as in the name of love, and doing, what you do, for fun. And this is amazing. But and I'm going to get emotional if I talk about this. I don't think you and I haven't had this conversation, I don't
Yeah,
think.
bring it on. I'd love
Um,
to hear.
okay.
Please.
When I was in the hospital for my stroke, um, I was more scared than I'd ever been. I just,
Mm.
uh, I have 3 children, just beautiful, wonderful kids, and a beautiful wife and a wonderful family. And the stroke just scared the heck out of me, because, as an entrepreneur or a type A person, you think that you can make anything in your world happen. And that works fine until your body just doesn't respond, or doesn't react. And uh, and I remember the day after the stroke, they put me through an MRI machine to make sure that I did have a stroke, and they were thinking maybe I didn't, because I recovered pretty quickly, although my memory was compromised. Um, but they put me in this big MRI machine, and I'm scared to death. And they told me that I'm going to be in the MRI for 45 minutes to an hour, and they're going to check out my brain and see what happened. And my family, who were there with me on the trip, they were stuck in their hotel room, because they all had vicious flus, which actually is what happened to me. That's apparently why my stroke happened, is the blood platelet levels were elevated. My blood wasn't flowing really well. But they were stuck there, and I just didn't have anybody with me. And so I'm scared. I'm worried about it. They put me in the MRI machine. I'm slightly claustrophobic anyhow, and you can imagine just being put inside a giant metal tube for an hour. And at the time, the technician there said, we're going to put you in. We can't have anything metal, so you can't bring in headphones or anything like that. But I happen to have all plastic headphones if you want to listen to something. And I said, sure, I'll do that. And he put it on. And as they slid me into the metal tube, um, me being more scared than I'd ever been in my life, like, am I going to leave my family? What's going on? And that song, Pride in the Name of Love, started the moments that I slid into the tube. And it's my theme song. And I thought maybe he's getting the music from my iPhone or something, because it's on heavy rotation amongst my 2,000 or 3,000 songs on my iPhone. And it just turns out he was listening to a classic rock station that happened to be playing that song at that very time, as I was put into the MRI machine. And you talk about seeing evidence, and and being as scared as I was, I'm trying not to get emotional about this, but that was just reassurance from God to me, just a pat on the back, and saying, you've got more to do, and I've got your back.
Mm.
And that's amazing. It's one of the most amazing things that ever happened to me at that moment, at that time, happening like it did. So that's interesting. And I think I was meant to talk about that, because it went off on my phone. I have a 2:00 alarm every day that says, check your planner, make sure you're on task, doing what you're supposed to do. And it plays that song every time. So,
Wow.
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 There we go.
Amazing. Wow, it just went right there. Oh my gosh. And what's so crazy is I was just listening to that today. And this is not like I have, I,
Wow.
U2 is like probably my all-time favorite band of all time. I had pictures of them when I was growing up anyhow, and I just added that. I have a like high vibe playlist, and that was the song.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's things do not happen accidentally. It's
absolutely
all, yeah, everything is part of a greater plan. So
not. Oh my
that's wonderful.
wow. What a story for you. I'm just thinking about that fear. I mean, being away and not, not having anyone with you and thankfully hearing that song, but just really getting, there's more for you to do.
Yeah.
It sounds like that was probably kind of a wake up call, literally, and helped shift kind of how you've been doing life since then. Would you say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
After that happened, and hopefully, if someone's listening to this, hopefully you don't need a wake up call like I had. I mean, that was scary, and that's when I finished that, I was not enjoying my business at all at the time, and I was financially successful, but I hated going to work. It wasn't for me, and part of me knew um, that I wasn't meant to be a real estate broker for the rest of my life. That I wouldn't put how many homes my company sold or how many properties we managed on my tombstone,
Right.
and kind of felt like I wasn't living my life. And I was good at it. It was, there was a market for it. I helped a lot of people, but it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't what I was meant to do.
Yeah.
So that stroke and that wake up call, I sold my business within about a month and a half after the stroke happened, and probably didn't get as much as I could for it. I mean, I did fine, but I was just so ready to be done with all of that, and I sold the businesses and went on a new path. And part of that path is writing the book for my kids, Life Lessons from Dad, and that is literally, it is a book from me to them, telling my kids everything I would want them to know if I wasn't here.
Mm,
And it's life lessons. I mean, they're for adults, and they're for my kids as adults, to teach them everything that a father should have for them. And I was so worried and so unnerved by what happened with the stroke, and how fragile this whole life can be,
yeah.
that I wanted to leave something for them of me, should something happen. So almost the next year I spent writing that book after I sold my businesses, and it ended up being a little scary. It's 685 pages, the
Wow.
the book itself. And what's interesting, this is strange how this happens, but then again, it's not, because you believe in this too. I wrote until I felt like I was finished writing, and then I went back and counted the lessons, and it turned out to be 101. So
Oh my
I wrote 101 life lessons from Dad, of just ways to get more from life, and for my kids. And it's been, yeah, I'm very glad I did that. I would not change that time of my life for anything, because now my kids have me with them all the time, should they ever want that.
It's amazing. It's amazing, Chip. Wow. One thing that's so clear about you is your lens of appreciation and really like taking anything, especially something as upsetting and maybe scary and uncertain as a stroke, and then out of it, it's like, lemonade, but not just lemonade from lemons. It's like you made lemon meringue, you made lemon sorbet, you made lemon bars. Like you're not just the lemonade boy guy. You're like, let me take the lemon and like, I'm going to make 15 amazing, beautiful things. Like you have that about you. And I know we can't go through all 101, but are there a couple that you feel kind of rise to the top to be worthwhile to talk about? I'm sure all of them are,
Yeah.
but a few that you're like, must share these.
Yeah, let's do that. What's interesting is, you asked how I became the joy guy, and
Yeah.
part of this is from turning from that depression into, maybe one of the most joyful people I know. And I say that humbly, because I really have worked hard at it. I've cultivated it,
Yeah.
and part of that is one of my biggest life lessons, and it's also part of my new book, which we're working on, the new book and course, The Joy Journey. and it's one of the pillars of joy, and that is appreciation in all things.
Yeah.
And that's one of my biggest life lessons that was in that book.
Mm,
And that is to appreciate it all. And that's whether it's good or bad or indifference
mm,
or anything. And it's easy. I talk about gratitude. There's gratitude 0, gratitude 1.0, gratitude 2.0, and gratitude 3.0. And we can go through that real quickly.
I love it. Yeah, please. I
Yeah, but
want to know gratitude 3.0.
yeah. Well, gratitude 0 are for the people that find faults in everything and aren't appreciative at all. We talked about this beforehand. They have expectations for everything, and when it doesn't meet their expectations, then the world is wrong.
Yeah.
And and they're angry. They're looking for reasons to be pissed off at something. That's gratitude 0.
Mm,
Gratitude 1.0, which is obviously much better, is appreciating the things that are given to you, that are just that are given to you. And that can be as simple as a waiter handing you your glass of water and you say thank you, or someone holding the door, or even seeing a magnificent sunset before you and thinking, thank you, God, this is beautiful, this is wonderful. And that is just being appreciative of the things that you have and what's in your life. And that's gratitude 1.0. Gratitude 2.0 is what I was talking about in the book, which is active appreciation.
mm,
And that is, and I like appreciation more than gratitude, because gratitude seems kind of passive, whereas active appreciation, it's proactive, and it's you going out to meet things versus the gratitude 1.0 of things coming to you. And so gratitude 2.0, active appreciation, is you setting aside time to go out to appreciate and find gratitude in other things. And you can do that through gratitude lists, which lots of people do, or times that you set aside to just appreciate things. I do. There's a lot of things I do for appreciation, but I do a gratitude style list, which I call my active appreciation list, both at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, and appreciating big, profound things like my children are taking breath and they're alive in this world. I mean, that's something profound. And then I usually put in something that I take for granted if I didn't have something like a practice like this. And some examples of that could be the engineers who designed my car to be incredibly safe.
mm,
And yeah, and you never think about those little things, or the fact that we are able to do podcasts. By the way, this is amazing, your voice and my voice reaching out to the person who's listening to this right now. I mean, it's a miracle of technology,
yeah.
and yet we just take it for granted, that it's there, versus actively appreciating it. And I'll say the gratitude 3.0, which I started, which I haven't talked about yet, is being able to appreciate obstacles and challenges and hardships and the very difficult things in life.
Mm,
And I'm a student of Stoicism, and I love different philosophers. And my third thing that I talk about, my lights keep going off on me because I'm not moving enough. But when yeah is when we talk about the things that are hard to appreciate,
yeah.
like if you've just been devastated with a relationship, or you've had a health challenge like a stroke, and you can't remember things that you could a week ago,
Right.
finding the beauty in that and finding what's good in it. And I call that divine cherishing. That's the best phrase that I could come up with for that.
Mm,
And and one of my friends, he says that active appreciation is to gratitude like running is to walking. And I think that divine cherishing is to appreciation as flying is to running. and and when you can take something that's horrible, that's bad, like say even a death of a loved one,
yeah.
and you can find the beauty in that you had the experiences with them and the love with them that makes goodbye hurt so much, and you can appreciate that and love that. And that is gratitude 3.0. And and again, just going back to this, I think that all of these, it's not something that you either don't have or you do have. It's something that can be cultivated
Right.
in each of us. And that's what I find so inspiring by it, is you can become that gracious person, that person that looks at everything as a blessing and loving life whatever happens, and just like we said earlier, releasing those expectations, releasing the results, and just being appreciative um, and loving the fact that we get this beautiful thing called life. So
Woo.
sorry, woo, got
That
to
was
take a
awesome.
breath from that.
I know. I'm like, hold
Yeah.
on, I need to just take that in. That's so, there's so much, like, it's almost like when there's chocolate chip cookie batter. I don't even eat those anymore, but I know what that batter looks so good. And you're like, hold on, I could take a scoop here. I could take a scoop. Like, it's just all good. It's got so many chocolate chips in there, is the best. I don't know why that just popped in. It's always food with me. I just saw a lot of like the
Yeah.
best kinds of chocolate chips in the whole world. Imagine like batter like that. Just what you said. I'm like, oh my God, there are more chips and there's some more chocolate chips. Like, it's going to be some darn good cookies.
Julie, let me do this, because we had this conversation. I'll let it in before we started this.
Yeah.
People come to the USU podcast because of you, because of Julie, right? And you have so much wisdom and so much to give the folks here. And by the way, when you and I met, it was one of the few instances where I did all the talking, and I didn't ask enough about you. And I think that this podcast is a little bit about that too. And we talked about it. I'll put you on the spot because you said that maybe you're going to do some solo episodes, which will be great. And I will be tuning in for those because you have a lot of wisdom. Let's hear about you and appreciation and gratitude, as we've heard, a little bit about my philosophy. What about you? I mean, how do you bring it into your life?
I love it. I love that you just like turn the table. I was picturing cookies and all of a sudden I'm like, what just happened? But the cookies, they're still there.
Yeah.
They're still there. You're the best. Oh my gosh. Well, it's funny, as I was listening, I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, we have a very similar, not surprisingly, philosophy and way of life. And thank you for asking. I'll share. So these are like cornerstones in my life as well. And I was thinking about the appreciations, and I've been very inspired. I don't know if you've listened to anything by Abraham Hicks before,
Yeah.
or Esther Hicks, who connects with infinite intelligence, known as Abraham. And for those listening, it used to seem out there. It doesn't seem out there to me at all. It really speaks to my soul. And there's a lot of focus on, I love that word appreciation. And I was thinking how even just the word appreciation versus gratitude, I like gratitude and being grateful, but appreciation, it's like you can have it anywhere at any time. And
Yeah.
so the couple ways I really tune into that, I have an appreciation, uh, accountability friend. I call her my,
Accountability. Wow. Okay.
yeah, we
I'm
do.
intrigued.
Yeah, we do. We do. If we don't talk every day, typically, and we've been doing this together almost, gosh, 5, 6, 7 years, maybe. I wouldn't say it's almost every day, but usually if I can't get her, if we can't get on the phone, then we'll leave a message. Just we'll go off on appreciations. And I also sometimes I will also do it in my journal as well. So I have a journal of that. I try to do that every day. What I do both appreciations, and then, like you had said earlier with the song, evidence. Evidence for me, it's like that playing and having fun with the universe, feeling loved by the divine, feeling loved and connected. I recently discovered I love to have fun and play, be playful. And I love feeling like there's like this whole team that's playing with me that I can't see, but just the angelic realm, divine, whatever you want to call it. I love feeling like we're in this together, having fun and for the good of humanity. So I will track both the evidence, but also appreciation. So for example, I would write in my journal tonight that I just really appreciated your big heart, and then the experience with that song. Like, I'll pull out pieces of our conversation, things that I want to remember and appreciate. I also, though, use it when for some bizarre reason, I love driving. I think it's my monkey mind goes offline, and something happens where I just get in this Zen space, usually, not always, not when people are not nice in the road, usually, but I'm typically calm. And I love finding things to be appreciative on the road, like a tree or someone's sticker on the back of their car. Or the other day I saw this woman like just, I mean, belting it in her car. She was just singing at the top of her lungs so loud I could hear her with both of our windows up. It was that loud. And I was like, I'm just appreciating a human being being so alive that they're
Yeah.
singing. It just, I try to make it like almost like like you don't really think about when you're chewing your food or digesting, you just do it. I try to make it like breathing, and just try to find things to to be appreciative. I think though my big opportunity is this 3.0. I'm decent at it, putting on that lens, but I can tell you I've had times I have I'm recovering. I'm in great health, but was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is
Yeah.
underactive thyroid autoimmune condition. And recently, Chips, we were at the same conference with Hal and other amazing people, and I was eating so carefully because I follow an autoimmune protocol, and something, I must have not got enough rest. I didn't eat, something didn't feel right, and I felt achy. I didn't feel great. And I just had that feeling of like, oh, come on. I've already taken like basically everything out. Like I just got frustrated and a little pity party, and then a little like fear, probably a little fear. And and then I just was like, well, what can I appreciate? And because I practice it, I think this is what you were saying. You said you cultivated this type of joy, this type of way of being. I just went right into, you know what I really appreciate, because I chose to take care of myself so carefully. Like I love vegetables. I love that I am attracted to healthy foods, that I have people in my life that are, also wanting to be like, I just started going into this rampage. I was like, there's a lot I appreciate that's come out of this. I don't like to call it a disease or illness. It doesn't feel that way to me. It feels like one of my soul's lessons. So yeah, I just really started appreciating all the gifts that have come from this experience. And I'll tell you what, I ended up feeling a lot better really soon after. It's amazing. It really does work. It's a
Yeah.
natural healer.
It is amazing. And what's really cool about this, and I think we know this intuitively, but I'm working with a happiness doctor, like a PhD, with my book, and she's a psychologist, has studied behavioral science,
Wow.
and it is an actual fact that our brains physically change on gratitude. And
Mm.
it also, they change with things like kindness, which is also a pillar that I have of joy, which we can get into here. But our brains physically change, like just like accountants get phenomenal at crunching numbers and it's easy for them and they don't understand why everyone else can't do it.
Right.
That part of their brain gets denser, more gray matter, more neurons firing together, and they get so good at it. And it is the exact same with gratitude and with kindness and appreciation. As you do it, you become wired differently. And that is so encouraging to me, that all of us have that ability with us, which is really neat. And I don't know if I finished the loop on this, but, in doing my appreciation practices every day, 2 times a day, because I do a bookend practice. When I wake up and when I go to sleep, I write it down. And it's so important to me because those are the times of days that you can control. The morning and the evening and everything else in the middle can go haywire, but you are able to start it and finish it like you want. And
I love
I
that.
always write down what obstacle or challenge or issue that I'm facing in my life. How can I be grateful for that? And just write it down. And just like you said, having Hashimoto's and finding a reason to be grateful for that. That's great.
Yeah.
Most people will never reach that because they don't cultivate it and they don't try
Yeah.
to get to that point. So I honor you for that. That is awesome that you're able to do it. And let me do this, because this is something that I love doing, is taking these practices and making them tangible,
Yeah.
and something that's
Love it.
real. So that anyone can say, oh, be more grateful. Oh, be appreciative. Or,
Yep.
try this divine cherishing stuff. But what I find is that if it doesn't change your schedule, and if it doesn't change your practices of what you do every day, then it doesn't change you.
Mm.
And so here are a few things. One is try that gratitude list at nights and in the morning. Those are the three that I told you about: something profound, something you take for granted, an obstacle or an issue is the third one. And then the last two, I always do five, so I don't want to do too many where it becomes a chore, but you want to get your brain reaching and thinking about gratitude, because the magic happens is when you're thinking about what to be grateful for and what to actively appreciate. And that's when it happens. So oftentimes that will be a person. A lot of times it will be an event, either past events or a future event. Oftentimes I find myself being really appreciative that podcast interviews go really well before they happen. And one, it gives your brain something to work on. And two, there's no reason to delay that joy. You can feel that. And I love that. So try the gratitude list, which everyone's heard. But here's a new one, and I don't think I've talked with you about this before. But I have a shoe. I have a shoe. I have two shoes actually on right now.
It's like,
But
I hope you have two.
yes, yes. But I have a coin that's in my shoe right now. Okay. And what this is, and I've been doing this, it's 5 years now since I've been doing this, which is amazing to me. But I always have a coin in my shoe, and it's a little uncomfortable. And here's the thing I can tell you about a coin in your shoe is that you never get used to it. When it shifts and you feel it shift, it kind of it triggers in your brain. And for me, it gives me an opportunity to be mindful at that moment throughout my whole day. And it's something that's really simple, but
Wow.
it's a trigger where whenever I feel that move, I have a moment of mindfulness. And you can choose whatever you want to for that. You can choose to actively appreciate just what a miracle all of this is. For me, I actually try and help it define how I will be or who I will be whenever I feel it move. And my thing, and I have to be careful on this because it sounds like a little holier than thou or something like that, and it's not meant to be that way. But whenever I feel the coin move, I think, let God show through my actions.
Wow.
And that changes that changes how I show up every day. And I can tell you it's made me a better person in how I act, so that's one trigger that I use, the gratitude lists. And the other one, which we heard kind of an example of earlier, but I have a joy alarm on my phone.
I love that. I was
Yeah.
going to ask you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I don't know if you've been around me when it goes off, but mine is set for 7 p.m. But I recommend that people do this on their phone. And actually, if you're listening to the USU podcast with Julie Reisler right now, take out your phone and do this. Set the alarm to go off every single day at a time where you're usually a little lower in energy, or the lull during your day,
Brilliant.
and put in joy alarm. And mine says, uh, "I am so very blessed!" Exclamation mark. And it plays "What a Wonderful World" by Louis Armstrong.
Oh my God.
And just whenever that starts up at 7 p.m. And it's interesting because I've had that on for 5-6 years now. And whenever it comes on, it still surprises me at 7 p.m. But I hear the first dulcet tones of Louis Armstrong's voice. I see trees of green. And when it happens, I just go instantly to that place of appreciation. And if I'm not driving, I'll close my eyes and just, even for 20-30 seconds, think of what a miracle this life is. And when you start infusing your day with appreciation and joy like that, it just makes such a big difference in how we show up. So those are some things that I do to help cultivate that appreciation, which, by the way, is only one of the ways to create joy. So
Oh my
yeah,
God.
so folks, if you're listening to this, give a couple of these a try, and hopefully, if you're like me, they make a big difference for you.
These are so awesome. Chip, you are like, I'm just sitting here in awe because so if you're listening, I always put these on YouTube as well. So people can just see you ooze this like joy and grace and gratitude and presence. And I'm like, well, you got a coin in your shoe. So now I understand that part. Yeah, which is amazing. I've never heard of that. That is so cool. And it really, what a great way to just constantly, every time you feel it, it helps you to be present and to
Yeah,
just,
it just
yeah.
well, thank you. That's yeah, it infuses it through your day. And what I try to do with this, being the joy guy or whatever, there's so many abstract things that people tell you or do. So we all know that we should be more grateful, and that leads to a better life.
Yeah.
But that's where most people leave it. No, the question is, and I'm so happy. I'm really curious about this kind of thing. It's just a blessing. Is well, how do we make that happen? What's the trigger or the framework or the change in our schedule that we can do to make that happen? And that's what I intend to do. I've tried to do with life lessons from Dad, and the joy journey coming up is to give people the tangible, real things that they can do to help change their behavior and change how they are. So I hope that's helpful.
Oh my gosh, incredible. All right. So, Chip, just for those who might have missed it, because I think I missed all the questions, I want to make sure we get them. I know you do this amazing gratitude practice in the morning, the evening. Can you go over the 5 questions that you ask yourself?
Yes. The five, and this is what I do, and I try and do every morning. Now, the rule is though, you can't do something you've done before, so you always have to be grateful for something new, because I know people get really stale with their gratitude lists. And the magic, the reason that this works and it's so powerful, is that your brain is going out there. Your brain and your hearts and your soul is going out there to find things to appreciate. And that's just like the exercise in the gym for your gratitude muscle. And so you always have to change it up. But for me, the framework that I use is the first one is I appreciate something profound. And
Mm.
that can be, for instance, the fact that my son is was born and he's healthy. Because when he was born, uh, he had a lot of medical issues, and he had to go through 7 surgeries in his first 6 months of life.
Oh.
And now he is healthy. He's super happy, the most joyful person probably I know, and he's here every day. And that's just every day with him is bonus, because we're not guaranteed anything. And for him, he had some major surgeries, and he's here. So that would be an example of something profound to be
Mm.
grateful for. Then the next thing that I do is something that I usually take for granted, and that can be anything. It can be, I remember it one day being warm water, that we wake
Mm.
up and we have warm water on demand, and it's just something that we take for granted. And 100, 200 years ago, not even kings and queens had that luxury. And here we have it every day, so much so that we take it for granted and we don't think about it unless we have a gratitude practice that prompts us to think about those kinds of things. So number 2 is something you could easily take for granted. And then number 3, that's the divine cherishing that we talked about. And that is a problem or an obstacle or something that people could consider quote unquote bad in their life,
Mm.
and finding the blessings behind it.
Mm.
And whatever that might be, like we talked about, your autoimmunity in Hashimoto's or whatever, but what are some of the blessings behind that?
Yeah.
And I think this, and everyone listening knows it, but we don't always translate that into things that we do every day. Um, but you can find a blessing in everything, and especially when you train your brain and your mind and your heart and your soul to be able to find the blessing in even the worst of circumstances, then you are just acing life. and
Mm.
and life is just it takes on a rich vibrancy and a texture that very few people get to experience when you get really attuned to that, and you actually have a practice that does it. So those are the 3 that I do every day. And then the last 2 out of the 5, because I try and do 5 every day. Actually, I do 5, morning and nights. And those can be anything. They can be people, places, or things, or experiences that you've had, experiences that you will have, things that you just are appreciative for that day, or something that happened this week that you want to remember, for instance, and you can go back and take that time in your mind and relive it and play that joy again. I mean, it's just anything that you want to put in there. And I like to leave that leeway to be a little creative and do what you want to, because I can't abide by rules just for rules sake. So, and
I'm with
even
you
if I'm
there.
setting them, even if I'm setting them, I rebel at that a little bit. So you got to have some flexibility in it. So that's my practice, and I try and do that every morning and every night to begin the day, to put up your appreciation antenna and to find all the blessings and the miracles and the wonderful things in life, so you notice them as you go along throughout the day. And
Mm,
then at the end of the day, I do it before I go to sleep to ease my mind, to help cure anxiety. Because I don't know if you've had those nights where you go to sleep anxious about things and fearful.
mm,
And gratitude cannot live in the same head at the same time as anxiety, or
mm,
vice versa. Anxiety can't live in the same head as gratitude at the same time.
right.
So I cure that every night before I go to sleep by getting into appreciation.
It's
And
beautiful.
yeah, and that's my bookend practice. And then something else, I'll just throw this in, I do wins for the day as well, and I write down as many wins as that I can put down, because that closes a lot of the mental loops, so you don't wake up at 3 a.m. going, oh my gosh, I didn't think about this or that or whatever. So that helps with it. And it just and we give ourselves credit, because we often don't do that. We are our own worst self-critics, obviously. And when you can find ways that you're winning, whether that just be putting on your shoes this morning when you really didn't feel like getting up and going out, whatever that is, you can write it down.
I love it.
And yeah, so that's my appreciation practice for morning and night.
So, so powerful. And I can see how doing that would help to cultivate, joy and
Yeah,
feeling more joy and feeling more connected. And it's like appreciation begets more appreciation, or what you appreciate appreciates, which I
yeah,
love. You
absolutely.
you really live that, Chip.
Thank
Before
you.
before we wrap up, I do want to talk a little bit about intuition.
Okay.
And I know, and for everyone listening, like, there's gonna at some point be around two. I don't know when we'll do it, but there's just so much goodness with you. I mean, so you guys, when we met this past summer, I remember I was like, the time flew, and I was like, where did the time go? I think we spent. I could have like kept listening to you and talked to you. I mean, you have a gift. You really have a gift, and I think it's your heart and your ability to share that. And this is awesome. There's so many amazing, like, really practical, useful tips and tools here that I think make a big, profound difference. And who doesn't
Thank
want more
you.
joy? I mean, who the heck
Yeah.
doesn't want more joy, right? And I know you are the joy guy, so.
Well, thank you for that. And just one of the things I wanted to let you know too is that active appreciation is just one of the pillars of joy, because there are
Mm,
several more, and there are several things that made the difference for me as well. And just going through those real quickly, active appreciation in all things, or appreciation in all things,
mm,
all being underlined, is the first pillar. The
yeah.
second pillar for me is affirmed philosophy, and
Mm,
that's something that had eluded me until this year, and that made me more joyful than I've ever been.
mm,
Because I don't know um, if you've been this way before too, but I used to have just joyful moments when I'd look at my kids and think and just have like a magical moment, and it's all wonderful and it's laced with joy. And then there's this voice in the back of my head
mm,
that says, this too shall pass. And this is finite. And this is the last time you're ever going to see your kids at this age doing the things that they are, or the last time you're going to experience this exquisite experience right now. And everything will fade and everything will get old. And this is it. And I don't know if you felt that before, or if anyone does, but that was almost debilitating for me,
right.
because I would just overthink it. And I developed a few philosophies that I apply and I affirm in the mornings that help make make that a thing of the past. And for
Mm.
me, that was the final combination in the lock that just turned on joy for me tremendously.
Amazing.
And so that's it, a affirmed philosophy, which we can go into or don't have to. And then the third one is abundance and adding to your life. And I might still work on these because I want them to be easily remembered. And I made them all A's, starting with active appreciation or appreciation in all things, affirming philosophy, adding to your life, and abundance.
Mm.
And then the last, and that is, by the way, adding to your life or abundance is the traditional self-development route, making yourself better and getting momentum in your life and becoming better than you were yesterday and feeling all of that momentum going forward. And that's how I pulled myself out of the depression,
Yeah.
is I did that. And then the last one on this is those pillars are the AOKs I mentioned before, acts of kindness.
I
And
love it.
that's paying it forward and serving other people and helping others when you do that. And for me, that takes place by literally being able to put a check mark in my journal, which I have right here. I have it everywhere with me, as to what was my act of kindness that day. And I try and do that every day. And hopefully I do it and don't tell other people about it, because that's just, between me and God, or me and the universe. And it just, again, helps make me happy. And those are the four pillars. And they're set upon something which I hadn't started before, but they're based on a foundation of self-love and worthiness and feeling like you deserve joy, and that you need it in your life. Because even if you have those four, which I think any of those four, doing one of them can help you feel joy in life, but doing all four
Yeah.
just creates an abundance of it.
Mm.
And it makes it, just almost inevitable that you feel it. But if it's not on a foundation of self-love and feeling like you deserve joy, then you will do things to sabotage that
Yeah.
and to undermine ourselves, and don't think that we deserve it, which I had a big problem with earlier in life, is that I didn't really feel like I deserved that kind of joy and true success in my life. So anyways, that's it. So I
Mm.
just wanted everyone to know and think it's not just about active appreciation, although of course that's a gigantic piece of it.
It's awesome, Chip. And I think what we should do, we'll do a whole other at some point. I know because your book is coming out around this, and I love these four pillars. And I also know you have a Joy Practices Worksheet. People can get that at joypractices.com, right?
Yep, absolutely. Just put in your email, and you will actually, two things that you'll get for that. One is the Joy Practices Worksheet, or checklist, and it's literally like has the little boxes, and you can check them off each day. So you can pick one from each column of things like acts of kindness and affirming your philosophy. And I have a few different philosophies that work for me, and you can choose what works for you. And you can check those off. And just by doing that, you're going to start experiencing more joy when you add that to your schedule in your life. And then the other thing is, I did a class for the Miracle Morning community. That's, gosh, like 240,000 people now. But I did one on the Joy Practices. It's a workshop, and that will automatically email out to you, and you can watch that. It's like an hour and a half or something like that, that just goes into a lot of these philosophies in a lot more detail.
Amazing.
And yeah, that's obviously all free. And then please unsubscribe if you don't want to hear from me anymore, because I don't want to. I want to be a blessing in someone's email box. So yeah.
Right.
So anyways, yeah, I want you to have that if that can help serve you in life.
Oh,
But
I
thank
love it,
you.
Chip. That's awesome. Let's just do a quick touch on intuition. We're going to need another this. We'll have another time because I have other things, but I know that you had a story you wanted to share, and just talking about intuition, maybe just a little bit about your kind of understanding of intuition and what you've seen in your life and your family.
Well, thank you. And intuition is so important, and I know that's your big thing. You love intuition. To me, and I don't push spirituality or God on anyone, but for me, it's God. But if you prefer to call it the universe or greater intelligence or anything, that's completely fine. But I think that intuition is God speaking to us. and telling us, the right thing. And the thing about intuition is it's never wrong.
Right.
Even when it seems like it's wrong, it was meant to happen, so that's it. But the most intuitive person I've ever met in my life, and it just comes to them completely naturally, is my 8-year-old son, Alec. And we call him the Amazing Alec. And actually, he has a Facebook page, The Amazing Alec. If you look it up on Facebook, he's kind of a thing. He has Down syndrome, and uh, and just the boy is just full of joy.
Mm.
And I kind of pinch myself sometimes thinking, yeah, I have an unfair advantage in the joy department because he's my son and I get to experience him and see him every day, and just the unbridled enthusiasm and love that he goes through every day with, which is just amazing. But getting back to intuition and him being the most intuitive person I know, he has surprised us before. Like I remember once being at Disney World, and I'm holding him in my arms and we're in line, and he just like almost leaps out of my arms and reaches out and hugs the gentleman behind us.
Oh my God.
And the guy behind us just like literally gets wet eyes, is like starting to break with emotion. He says, "Oh my gosh, you don't know how much I needed that." And Alex seems to do this like all the time. And just a story I told you about, I posted on my Facebook page 2 days ago. But we were at the hospital getting my mother's blood work done because she's fighting cancer right now. And Alec asked to run down the hall, and we're like, the place is almost empty. So I said, sure, go ahead and run down the hall, because he loves that. And watching him run, it's like Phoebe from Friends. I don't
Yeah.
know if you've ever seen her
Yeah,
run.
I do. I
Yeah,
remember that.
that's him. I mean, his running is just like, it's full of joy. It's awesome. And anyways, it's it's hilarious. If you watch it, it's on Facebook too. On The Amazing Alec, we videotape him running often because it's just a joyous thing. But he runs down the hall and he comes back and he's starting to run towards me. And then I see him take a right. So to my left and his right, and he disappears. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I get up and I run over to where he is down the hallway, and he's in a classroom, and there are about 15 people there, men, women, a doctor is leading a class. And I walk to the doorway and I'm like, Alec, come on, come here. Let's get out of here. And he says, no, Dad, I need to hug. And I'm like, what? And he proceeds to hug every man, woman, and person in there. And the doctor that was leading the class, he hugs every single one of them, gives them a long hug, sinks into the hug. He always pats them on the back when he's hugging. And the doctor held the hug for a really long time. And it turns out that this class was a class on diabetes for people that were just diagnosed with it, and they were teaching them how to inject insulin into themselves.
Wow.
And Alec just kind of knew that these people sorely needed a hug, and he hugged everybody. And it was just really neat because he got some genuine smiles, because he's just super precious, just knew that they all needed it and did that. And that's just an intuition thing. And I have this thought that we're all divine creatures. You're all divine entities having an earthly experience, which is kind of cliche, and everyone says that. But when we're born, and I don't know I think we've had this conversation before, just babies are so in tune with the source and with God, and they're super happy and they smile and they give into their emotions. And then, throughout the years, the cynicism of the world kind of puts a film of residue over our light.
Mm.
And as the years go on, that happens. But my son Alec has that childlike innocence and will have it forever. And it's just a beautiful thing to see. And he's just got this this divine conduit, to God, and it's just kind of a wonderful thing to see. And I think that when that is clear, or more clear, then when the moments of intuition hit us, a lot more clearly. So he knows when someone needs a hug, and he knows when to smile and to help someone, and it's just a beautiful thing to watch.
Oh my gosh, Chip, that was so beautiful. I can picture it. We're gonna maybe sometime we'll do an interview and he can hang out too and just
Yeah.
He sounds like your joy compass. Like if you need, or your joy, like you need a little joy, you just connect with him. So
Absolutely.
connected to
Yeah.
that. Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
I just gotta say, you're such a man of valor, like you've just got such an amazing ability to look for the best in everything and to share it. And I've been around you before with big groups, and it's like you just exude, people can feel it. You really exude this joy and
Thank
this
you.
deep, divine connection. And I am so honored. I'm so glad that we got to do this and you got to share so much today. I feel like there's such wisdom. I'm so excited because I'm looking at so you guys, if you're at the gym or if you're driving, like, don't worry, I'm going to put a lot of this in show notes. And I am sure we'll be doing something again soon because there's a lot more to just, especially, my gosh, so much more, especially around joy and your new book. And just want to thank you for who you are in the world. You're really a very powerful light. And I'm honored to know you, to have had you here, and for everyone tuning in, all of my beloved family listeners, getting to know you.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been an honor. It's always an honor to talk with you, and I'll say this because the folks listening, I hope they know you and take what I said earlier. Do some solo episodes where just get the wisdom and Tao of Julie on their recording, because people need to know more of you in this world. So just think about that, and it's always an honor to talk with you. And just when we met and talked in, I guess it was August that we did that at the mastermind. You just let me talk on and on about my experience or whatever, and we didn't talk much about you, and you've got so much to share and to talk about. So yeah, just as being one of your listeners, I humbly implore you to give more of Julie in these podcasts so we can hear more of you too, my friend.
You're so awesome. All right. Well, for the beginning of 2020, I'm gonna take that in, and you've inspired me. You've inspired me. And I'm gonna absolutely start doing this morning and night gratitude practice, all of it in the show notes. You are just a gem. I'm saluting to you. Thank you for being here, Chip, and so much love. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Julie, yeah, be blessed today. And